Last one will be our discussion on agenda item 39 and 40. This is the plan that I'm going to do today. And if you allow me now, I would like to start our discussion with the first one. The first part is a draft text for the general section of the Legal Commission report. I'm going to present you, and we can go through the draft report paragraph by paragraph, and I'm asking you for each paragraph, and I'm seeking your feedback, if any. Now, the first paragraph of the report of the Legal Commission to the Assembly on the general part. Paragraph 1, is there any comment? I don't think there will be any comment. Para 2, no comment. Para 3, no comment, I believe. Number 4, paragraph 5, paragraph 6, there is no comment. 6.1, 6.2, there is no comment, so I assume that we adopt the draft text for the general section of the Legal Commission report. Now we are arriving on at the second part of our discussion on the draft text for the report on agenda item 37 and 38. Let's begin with paragraph 37.1. No comment. Now we go to agenda item 38, paragraph 38.1. No comment. 38.2. I see none. 38.3. Yes, I recognize the United States. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to point out that during the introduction of Working Paper 101, after Brazil introduced the paper, then the U.S., myself, as co-sponsor, also made a few introductory remarks for the paper. I've provided those comments to the Secretariat, and I don't believe I need to read them there, but it's a summary of the statement I made during that presentation. So I'd like that to be reflected at the end of 38.3, if possible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Would you mind reading it? Thank you.
Yes, I'm happy to read it. The U.S., as co-sponsor, took the floor to point out that the promotion of aviation safety worldwide requires cooperation and unimpeded and agile communication among states, particularly their aviation authorities, regarding alleged violations of operating rules, full stop. Then the second sentence, the last sentence. Therefore, the creation of a legal and technical working group to assess and improve upon the process for notification and communication between states will result in the enhancement of global aviation safety, full stop. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, U.S. I see France wishes to take the floor. You have the floor, France.
Thank you, Chairman. I didn't want to respond to the comment by the U.S., but just on the meeting on the screen, we see agenda item 30, RPAS ATM, which is not on our agenda. That's the Technical Commission. So could you please put the report that we're looking at up on the screen with the paragraphs as we go through them? That way each delegation will be able to see the items being addressed at the same time as you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. I noted the request of the delegation of France, but normally this is not the practice of the Legal Commission because we give you 6 languages in advance. Each person is supposed to have your own copy. If not, it's the soft copy in the website. Technical Commission follow the different practice. It's not the rule, it's just the practice. So I would repeat, we did not prepare to show a screen in English only, because that would not be quite equal and authentic for other languages. So I would again suggest you go to the website or print the hard copy. I hope I clarified that. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. Franz, you would like to take the floor again?
Oui.
Yes, thank you. We know that there are 6 official languages in ICAO, but a number of commissions, to make it easier to read, have put the report on the screen just on an indicative basis, and that way everybody knows where they are. If it's possible, it could just be the English version, just as an indication. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm consulting with the Secretariat. There is some technical challenges if we really want to meet your request, because we don't have the text in the French version, so in the computer. So if you insist to have it, perhaps technically we need to adjourn the meeting for a while. Should we proceed in this manner, or is there any other view? Yes, Franz, you have the floor.
Je pense qu'on peut pas.
Well, I think we can continue as is, but as the discussions proceed, perhaps in the meantime, somebody from LIB can try to see if they can get the report up on the screen. Thank you.
Can we do it? Thank you. I think we will proceed, and then the Secretariat will try to display it while we continue discussing the draft report. Is there any other view? If there is no other comment, I think I can assume that the proposal made by our colleague from the US to reflect its introductory remarks should be reflected in paragraph 38, para 3, is acceptable. Okay, there is no comment. And now we go to paragraph 38.4. Singapore, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for the purpose of accuracy, I would like to include in the 5th line of this paragraph, after the word caveat, to include the words by a number of them, so that the sentence would read, the remaining delegations taking the floor all offered support for the paper, but with the caveat, by a number of them, that consideration of mechanisms and the rest of the sentence follows. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Singapore. Is there any other comment? I see none, so I think we can adopt paragraph 38.4 with some improvement made by Singaporean delegation. Now, paragraph 38.5. Let's continue to paragraph 38.6. $38.7. 38.8. 38.9. Yes, Marshall Island, you have the floor.
In fact, it's Czech Republic. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, sorry.
I
should
tried to push the button when the point 3087 was in question. So if I may. So I would like to ask for following revisions to make the report even more precise and even better to reflect the main points made in the discussion. I believe my comments were sent to the Secretariat, but I can read them now. In point set 38.7, we would recommend to replace the term or acronym ARPAS by a more general term unmanned aircraft, or if you like, pilotless aircraft, as both updated work program of the legal committee and interventions of many member states referred to this more general term that include both small UAS and complex, if you like, certified ARPAS. So that's my first point. The second point, in order to reflect the discussion even more precisely, I would like to ask for, if you may add following text at the end of point 38.7. If I may read it now. In particular, as the decision of the legal committee was made under its work program item with the highest priority and approximately 1 year ago. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Czech delegation. I think I should use this opportunity to seek apology from your delegation because I failed to recognize when you push the button. I think there is some improvement from Czech delegation, and I don't see any problem, I believe. So we can continue to paragraph 38.10. Yes, Secretariat would like to make a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only comment we had was on the first proposed change regarding substitute of the acronym RPAS. The logic behind the inclusion of RPAS in that particular case is it reflects the term that was used at the time. So it's more of an historical point. That at the time of the decision was made regarding the item was legal aspects of RPAS. And as a result of the action reflected in paragraph 38.7, the item and the title of the working group was altered to use the more, the broader terminology of unmanned or pilotless aircraft. So we had included RPAS just on the basis of historical purposes, that was the term that was being discussed at the time was legal aspects of RPAS operations. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat, for the explanation. Is there any response from Czech? If not, maybe I suggest we keep this paragraph as it stands. I'm sorry, with the caveat, this the improvement in the last edition should be inserted. Thank you. Now we go to paragraph 38.10. – 38.11. Australia, you have the floor. Microphone, please.
Sorry? A small but an almost but not quite editorial suggestion for 38.11. You'll recall when we agreed to merge items 4 and 5. This was done by appending a reference to including cyber threats to the end of the newly constructed sentence. I think the intent could be captured more accurately, not by changing the substance, but by reordering that quoted paragraph, which would then become item 4 in paragraph 38.13, to read, acts or offenses of concern to the international aviation community, including cyber threats that may not be adequately covered by existing air law instruments, rather than hanging it at the end. So it's not a substantive change, but I think it reads more coherently. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Australia, for your constructive idea. Is there any comment or response? I see none. And then we go to 3811. And I believe in paragraph there should be some change too, as proposed by Australia, by change the order. There is no comment. And 3814. Thank you. I think we are concluding our discussion on the draft text for the report on agenda item 37 and 38. Now I wish to continue by going to agenda item 39. Let's begin with 39.1. Thirty-nine, 2. 39, 3. 39, 4. 39, so yeah, sorry, I think in 39, 4, there are some delegation wishes to ways to take the floor. I recognize United States.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I just wanted to correct the statement there by the beginning of that paragraph, which it says one delegation. That's referring to the U.S., the statement I made. And I want to be very clear. I want to make sure this is correct. I've given the language to the Secretariat, so you have it in front of you, but I'll read it. And the main point here, of course, is that I want everyone to know the U.S., as I said in my statement, totally supports the steps that have been taken to address unruly and disruptive passengers. So we'll replace that first long sentence there, which is our statement, with the following. One delegation recognized that unruly and disruptive passenger incidents are increasingly prevalent. The delegation supports efforts to combat these incidents and work diligently in support of the Unruly and Disruptive Passengers Task Force. However, the delegation voiced its objection to Montreal Protocol of 2014 due to the limitations imposed on the ability of in-flight security officers, IFSOs, to take reasonable preventive measures when there is a threat to the safety of an aircraft or to persons on board, thus limiting the authority IFSOs possess as passengers under the Tokyo Convention. In addition, the language of the protocol makes the implementation of state of landing jurisdiction over offenders difficult for many states. Full stop. That is a summary of the statement I made the other day. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, United States, for proposing a new revision. The main idea of the revision just to clarify the U.S. position or U.S. statement on that particular issue. Now I would like to invite IATA.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I think that IATA would also like to clarify its statement of position, which is reflected in that sentence starting one observer highlighted that, and would like to substitute another sentence that more fully reflects the detail that was provided by IATA at that time. Mr. Chair, am I at liberty to propose specific language?
Yep, please.
So we would propose that sentence now reads, one observer highlighted the substantial benefits to be derived from a broad ratification of the protocol, comma, noting that the concerns expressed could be resolved on its analysis and may not apply to other states. The observer stated that the protocol did not represent, in their view, any substantive restriction upon the ability of states to address security matters on board aircraft and was an important tool for global uniformity. Then there is a further sentence which we would propose, which then reads, a state delegation associated itself with these remarks, expressing the view that, comma, while not perfect in all respects as an international instrument, comma, the protocol had merit and was consistent with air law principles. That concludes the proposal of IATA, Mr. Chair, and we'd be happy to provide the copy of that text to the Secretariat as appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, IATA, for your statement of position. I think it would be good if you could share the copy of your proposal to the Secretariat. Now I invite Netherlands.
Just to seek for some clarification on the last part of item 39.4, and and then some clarification on the summary of discussions on that part. Well, the last part of the text seems to leave room for the suggestion that matters that are discussed in detail within the framework of ICAO might come to a treaty outside of the ICAO context. And I'm not sure whether it was the intention to leave such room for such a suggestion. And if that's not the case, then you might consider deleting the text that starts with the issues raised in those papers may not have been intended for adoption of treaties under ICAO auspices. Thank you.
Thank you, Netherlands. Maybe Secretariat can help me to comment this one.
Thank you for the chair. Thank you for chair for your and for the comments from the Netherlands. Secretariat does not have any objection if we want to delete that part. The problem is another delegation suggested that the work cover in the two working papers of the Economic Commission, namely so and so, which contain legal elements, should have been considered by the Legal Commission in the framework of its mandate. So if we delete the entire thing, it's fine. But if you delete the Secretariat part without deleting that part, it becomes, the question will not be answered. So I offer you either to completely delete from another delegation suggested that the work cover in two working papers, or you keep the whole thing as it is. That's my suggestion. It's up to you to decide.
Thank you, Netherlands. Do you have any response? You have the floor.
Thank you. The Netherlands wasn't the one raising the issue, so it's not up to us to delete the whole part. Because if you delete the whole part, then it would have been like the delegation that suggested this didn't mention the whole matter. So it's not up to us to erase the whole part.
Thank you, Netherlands. Now I'm offering to the floor. Do we agree that we delete the whole part? I don't see any objection. Yes, South Africa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. South Africa proposes that we keep this, but it needs to be more in context, because under the paragraph where it's stated, it seems to be addressing a lot more issues than what was discussed initially. So it needs to be clear, and I think it's relevant that it be kept in terms of what we were trying to achieve here. If we delete it, it loses meaning, and we believe that it's of importance that it be kept within the reporting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm just wondering whether the Russian delegation is in the room, because this discussion has to do with the Russian statement. Yes, Russia, you have the floor.
Да, здравствуйте, мы здесь присутствуем.
Thank you. Yes, we are here.
I'm seeking your views about the idea whether, the question whether we delete this sentence entirely or we just redraft it, because it has to do with your idea.
А не могли бы вы, пожалуйста,
Could you please be more specific about what sentence you're talking about?
Thank you, Russian Federation, for your question. We are referring to second part of paragraph 39.4. On page 39.2, starting from the English version, starting from the sixth line, it reads, another delegation suggested that the work cover in two working papers of the Economic Commission, namely A40WP 182 and A40WP 192, which contain legal elements, should have been considered by the Legal Commission in the framework of its mandate. If I recall correctly, this is the statement from the Russian Federation. There was a proposal from the floor now. We delete the second part of the sentence. The Secretariat explained that the issue raised and the rest. So if we delete the Secretariat intervention, the sentence will not be complete. So the question put to you is, does Russian Federation mind if we delete the whole sentence starting from another delegation? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Huang.
мы готовы не возражать против удаления?
Yes, we are prepared not to object to this, to the deletion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Russia. I think maybe we can delete this sentence, this part. There is no any comment. So let's go to 39.5. Before I continue, I just want to invite the Secretariat to make some clarification on 39.4.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to all. I just want to thank those delegations that shared their comments on this part in advance with the Secretariat, and because of that, we were able to reflect that in the text that is presented above you. We have done some very slight editorial suggestions, probably to use less words, but substantially everything that has been accepted by the Commission for addition to this section of the report is now before you, and just seeking, in the interest of brevity, some final confirmation that this can proceed to the next step. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to read it out for the benefit of those who may not have full visibility of the text at dictation speed. One delegation recognized that unruly and disruptive passenger incidents are increasingly prevalent. The delegation supports efforts to combat these incidents and the work done by the Unruly and Disruptive Passengers Task Force. However, this delegation voiced its objection to the Montreal Protocol of 2014 due to the limitations imposed on the ability of in-flight security officers, IFSOs, to take reasonable preventative measures when there is a threat to the safety of an aircraft or to persons on board, thus limiting the authority IFSOs possess as passengers under the Tokyo Convention. In addition, the language of the protocol makes the implementation of the state of landing jurisdiction over offenders difficult for many states. One observer highlighted the substantial benefits to be derived from a broad ratification of the protocol, noting that the concerns expressed could be resolved and may not apply to other states. This observer stated that the protocol did not represent any substantive restriction upon the ability of states to address security matters on board aircraft and was an important tool for global uniformity. One delegation associated itself with these remarks, stating that while not perfect in all respects, the protocol had merit and was consistent with air law. Full stop. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for the clarification, not clarification actually, just to read it again, the paragraph. If none, let's go to Singapore in 30, not yet, yeah. Now we are going to 39.6, and I recognize Singapore. See. Microphone, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. Actually, I wanted to refer to 39.4 just to check, because there is a last sentence, as a matter of procedure, any treaty adopted under ICAO auspices would first have been considered by the legal committee and then reported to the legal commission. And I just want to check whether this sentence is to be retained, because it I think was in relation to the Russian Federation's point. And if you keep that, then it's a bit, it doesn't flow. You have to delete it if you delete the preceding sentence.
We deleted the whole thing.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that that's deleted. Okay, so in relation to paragraph 39.6, I have two amendments. One is in line 6, towards the right. It says, through the sharing of information, and I would like to propose to include information and to add and experiences. So the sentence there would read, delegations noted that the regular convening of the forum would enable civil aviation legal advisors through the sharing of information and experiences to continuously update and enhance their competencies, etc. And to the rest of the sentence. And the next amendment I would like to request is to delete in that context and replace with the words, with a view to encouraging further such updating and enhancements, and then continue with Gambia also invited. And I would like to thank Gambia for agreeing with me that this amendment can be made. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Singapore. I think Singaporean delegation has made some addition to improve the paragraph, and I don't see any objection, so maybe we can proceed to 39.7. 39.7. 39.8. Yes, France, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chairman. On 39.8, we just had a small comment on this paragraph. It seems to us to be a description of what is happening in China with the system of social credit, and so it's descriptive. But when we say, given that they have been effective, I'm referring to the French version, perhaps we should say in English, since China considers that these credit administrative measures have proved effective, because in fact many states don't know this system, and so it's difficult to say that the legal commission could say that they have proved effective because we're not familiar with that. So actually it's China determining this. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I wish to give the floor to China.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In 39.8, there is a revision, editorial revision. It concerns the Chinese version, which is not in line with the English version. We need to make editorial adjustment. Thank you.
Thank you, China, for your proposal to revise, to improve the Chinese versions of this paragraph. Now, I have the floor, Germany.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to all. We would fully align ourselves with the comments made by France earlier on 39.8. Thank you.
Thank you, Germany. Sri Lanka.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's regarding 39.6. Mr. Chairman, I thank Singapore and other states that presented this working paper. In retrospective deliberations, I believe that it's pertinent to mention that the Legal Advisors Forum should not be confined to the personnel of national civil aviation authorities only. We believe it may be useful to expand the scope of this forum to invite industry and private legal firms specializing in aviation-related matters, at least in the capacity of observers, as their views and experiences gained through practical implementation and interaction would definitely benefit the discourse on matters that come up in the CALAF.
Thank you. Before we going back to paragraph 38, I believe the Secretariat would like to make a delegation. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I recall correctly, the distinguished delegation of Sri Lanka did not make that statement during the debate of this issue. So the exercise of today is to reflect what has been debated. Unless I'm wrong, I would let you to explain whether you actually had made that statement when the working paper was presented. If not, then it will not be reflected at this moment, because we have to reflect faithfully what had been discussed on that day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Huang. Maybe Sri Lankan delegation would like to clarify. You have the floor.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we did not raise it up at that moment. That's why I mentioned it's retrospective deliberations.
Thank you. If you allow me, I seek your indulgence. Perhaps we just keep this paragraph as it stands. Thank you. Let's go back to paragraph 39.8. There were comments from France and supported by Germany that we should modify a little bit this particular paragraph. It doesn't say that the legal commission consider this idea is effective, but the Chinese delegation consider it effective. This is the main idea, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, I recognize Mr. Huang would like to say something on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my proposal to see whether in the English version, 39.8, the last two lines, we can change it in this way to see whether we satisfy three members, China, France, and Germany. This is my proposal. Since these credit administrative measures have been considered effective by China, its objective is to share its experience with other civil aviation authority to receive support from ICAO and to contribute to the promotion of credit administration. Let me read it again. Since these credit administrative measures have been considered effective by China, its objective is to share its experience. I just propose it to see whether we can bridge the differences of the views on the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Huang, for your brilliant idea. I think is that there is one proposal to bridge the difference between the three ideas. Is it acceptable? Yes, I see France.
Si, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we do like this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, France. Any other comment? I see none, so it means good news. Then we can proceed to 39.9. Yes, IATA, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's just to observe that there was some detail in the discussions at 39.9. We believe that detail could be usefully reflected in the report. We're happy to propose particular language if that would be assistance to the Commission. Thank you.
Would you mind reading it?
Yes, so we would propose that after the phrase on the application of the credit measures in the second sentence, we insert a comma and introduce language which would read, particularly in respect of their intended scope of application to international civil aviation and the interaction of these measures with existing treaties and the broader international regulatory framework, full stop. China made detailed remarks of clarification in reply, reiterating the application of the measures to foreign operators within China and citing specific provisions on the legal hierarchy in Chinese law as between bilateral agreements and local regulations, full stop. That's the suggested language, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Yata. I really appreciate if you can share with the Secretariat your language. It will be help us to capture your proposal. Oh. Okay. I was informed that the Secretariat already has the text, and then we are going to display it on screen. And if you allow me, can we now invite France? France, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chairperson. As regards 39.9, many delegations spoke on this paper during the discussion, and there were 4 arguments put forth regarding the use of these measures, and as regards just culture, the work program of the legal committee, which is very heavy, and the satisfaction that several delegations showed regarding ICAO's policy on unruly passengers. These comments were made by my colleague, Mr. Terry Olson, on behalf of the French delegation. And these comments were supported by several states, and I don't see even a small trace of them in this report. We sent a proposal for amendment of the report, and I can read it to you in English, but I would prefer for it to be put up on the screen because my accent is not wonderful, and but if you would like, I can do it.
Please share the copy, and would you also please to read it out? Thank you. Please read it out.
Vous pouvez le mettre à l'écran, s'il vous plaît.
Can you put it up on the screen, please?
Mr. Chair, we don't have that paragraph on the screen.
Il a été envoyé au bureau.
It was sent to the legal bureau at 12:27.
Yes, we have it. We have the text, but we cannot put it on the screen now. Just a moment, okay? Excuse me, as this computer is not connected to the network or LEB, so we cannot have access to that. I would suggest that you read it at the dictation speeds to allow the translation. Thank you.
OK. Paragraphe 39.
Paragraph 39.9.
Thanked China for sharing its experience and information. One observer, supported by several delegations, expressed the unprecedented concern of the airlines on this subject in relation to the compatibility of the sanction regime with the international legal framework. Since this regime would apply also to foreign airlines companies and not only Chinese companies, the refusal or reduction of market access triggered by this social credit scheme would indeed be incompatible with bilateral agreements. Several delegations questioned the meaning and scope of this approach and how ICAO might be concerned. If the purpose of Working Paper 236 was to promote the social credit system and for other member states to draw inspiration from it, or to build an international system inspired by social credit, several strong reservations were expressed. It was pointed out that ICAO's legal work program is already very heavy, and the complex interactions between this concept and the international principle of just culture, as well as bilateral agreements, were recalled. While one of the aims of this system could be to combat unruly passengers, several delegations expressed their confidence in the work already undertaken by ICAO in this area. Some delegations sought clarification on the application of the credit measures. The Commission took note of the working paper and welcomed the information contained in it, while noting that additional information would be needed from China in the course of any future deliberations. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, France delegation. I'm seeking your views. Are you suggesting that we are going to replace the whole paragraph 39.9 with your proposal? Thank you. So there is a proposal to replace paragraph 39.9 with the language that has just been read out by France delegation. Is this proposal acceptable to the meeting?
Now it's on the screen.
It is now on the screen. Yes, China, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, we hope that we can see the Chinese version. Thank you.
I don't know whether we can have the Chinese version at this moment. Of course, now we are in the technical problem. So if you don't mind, I really suggest the French delegation to reread again the proposal in a very slow fashion, so it will allow the Chinese translator to read the proposal. So very slow, and to enable the translator to translate. Thank you.
Très bien, Monsieur le Président. Je vais donc...
Thank you, Chairman. I will try to do it a bit more slowly. Thank you.
Aviation thanked China for sharing its experience and information. One observer, supported by several delegations, expressed the unprecedented concern of the airlines on this subject in relation to the compatibility of the sanction regime with the international legal framework. Since this regime would apply also to foreign airlines companies and not only Chinese companies, the refusal or reduction of market access triggered by the social credit scheme would indeed be incompatible with bilateral agreements. Several delegations questioned the meaning and scope of this approach and how ICAO might be concerned. If the purpose of Working Paper 236 was to promote the social credit system and for other member states to draw inspiration from it, or to build an international system inspired by social credit, several strong reservations were expressed. It was pointed out that ICAO's legal work program is already very heavy, and the complex interactions between this concept and the international principle of just culture, as well as bilateral agreements, were recalled. While one of the aims of this system could be to combat unruly passengers, several delegations expressed their confidence in the work already undertaken by ICAO in this area. Some delegations sought clarification on the application of the credit measures. The Commission took note of the working paper and welcomed the information contained in it, while noting that additional information would be needed from China in the course of any future deliberations. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Franz, for your indulgence to read it again, the proposal. Now, I'm going to give the floor to China to respond.
First of all, I would like to thank the delegation of France for his indulgence to reread the proposal. The new proposal is rather lengthy. If I recall correctly, I think some of the content were not included in the oral intervention during our discussion, so I would like to seek clarification from the Secretariat. With regard to the comments from observers vis-à-vis the incompatibility with the international legal regime, I think at that time we already clarified that there was no such incompatibility. However, the proposal by France did not reflect such. So I would just like to clarify that there was no questioning about the incompatibility with regard to the international regime. That's all I have to say now. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I really want to consult with the Secretariat whether there was a deliberation, there was discussion about the issue of the incompatibility of with international legal regime.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a small consultation on the podium. Indeed, we can confirm that all the relevant facts, relevant statements mentioned by the French text were mentioned during the intervention of the French delegation at that time. On the other hand, we noted that in fact, China has clarified the intention is to share the information with other states and do not really intend to include it in the general work program. So I don't think that we need to say word for word of the intervention at the time, saying that ICAO legal work program is already very heavy. So my suggested approach is that whether China, France, and IATA, three of you could meet and then provide a balanced paragraph in the shorter form, because the current form looks a bit lengthier. It's almost like a word-for-word repetition of the intervention. That's my suggestion to you, to see whether it could be a practical solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Huang, for your proposal. Now I have Finland, and then I will give the floor to China again. Finland, you have the floor.
you, Chair. Now it's red. Thank you. I had already pressed the button before the Secretariat was kind enough to give its explanation. I just wanted to reaffirm that I trust that all the elements were voiced during the intervention, so they are correctly noted. However, in the previous proposal that was based on IATA's comments, there was a paragraph, there was a sentence to the effect of China explaining that international obligations would take priority, and I was going to suggest that there could be a combination of these two solutions. However, I would be happy to that the parties involved would try to find a solution, an appropriate text to illustrate what was discussed. Thank you.
Thank you, Finland. Now I'm inviting China.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We agree with the proposal put forward by the Secretariat.
Thank you. So if there is agreement that France delegation, Chinese delegation, and IATA can work together to find a common language on this paragraph. While we are waiting their discussion, I suggest that we can continue our deliberation on the remaining paragraphs. Can we proceed? So, while waiting our agreement on paragraph 39.9, let's go to paragraph 39.10. No comment. 39.11. There is no comment. So now I think we are finalizing the body part. Let's go to the appendix. There is on resolution 39.1 on consolidated statement of continuing ICAO policies in the legal field. Is there any comment on the draft? Appendix A on general policy. Appendix B on okay. So 41. This is okay, good. Sorry. Thank you, Secretariat, for reminding me that there should be revision for the numbering of the resolution should be 41, not 39. Now we go to Appendix B on procedures for approval of draft convention on international air law. Now we go to Appendix C on ratification of ICAO international instruments.
Okay. Excuse me, this slightest explanation here. This draft resolution at this moment will be presented as a resolution under item 39 of this assembly. So it should be put as a resolution 39 at this moment. When it's adopted by the plenary, then it would be renumbered as the resolution of 40 session of the Assembly. So for the time being, we keep 39 because it's Agenda 39. I hope I explained it clearly.
Thank you so much, Mr. Huang, for your clarification, for clarifying the numbering of the draft resolution. Thank you once again. Now we go to Appendix C on ratification of ICAO international instruments. Appendix D, the teaching of air law. Appendix E on adoption on national legislation on certain offenses committed on board aircraft or unruly and disruptive passenger. Now we go to Appendix F on a practical way forward on legal and institutional aspect of communication, navigation, surveillance, and air traffic management system. Appendix G on enhancing the capacity and effectiveness of states to implement air law treaties and update national laws and regulation. There is no comment. And now I suggest we proceed to agenda item 40 on other issues to be considered by the Legal Commission. Paragraph 40 and 1. Two. 43. 44. 45. I think we are concluding our discussion on agenda item 40, and the remaining issue is still under paragraph 39.9, I believe. And I'm expecting good news from our friends from France, China, and IATA. Yeah. Mr. Huang, you would like to have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regarding the result of the discussion among China, France, and IATA, my proposal is instead of reconvening this committee or commission, we would delegate the authority for the chair of the commission to approve the text and including in the final version presented to the plenary. If it's agreeable, I appeal to the 2 states and 1 international organization to complete your discussion and agree on the text to be transmitted to Legal Bureau before the close of business at 5. Would that be okay?
France, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Chairman. We can go along with the small group with China and IATA. That's an excellent proposal. But just to point out that our paragraph wasn't that long because we're looking at paragraph 39.2, which we think is quite long. But since the chair is proposing a small group, we will go along with that. I would like to have the delegation of Finland with me, who helped me a great deal in drafting this. Thank you.
Finland is okay.
Finland? Okay, thank you so much. So is there any comment on the proposal made by Mr. Huang from the Secretariat that we will request the small groups to work on the new language on the paragraph 39.9, and then I need your authorization, and we will, together with the Secretariat, to include it in the report, and it will be presented in the plenary. Is there any comment? I see none. So I think we can finish our meeting. I'm just seeking the views from Secretariat about our future meeting on what we're going to do in the plenary, when we're going to take. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Congratulations. Under your wise leaderships that we have completed all our agenda items subject to the delegation of authority to approve that paragraph 39.9. The next step will be for you to present on behalf of the Legal Commission the report to the plenary on the time determined by the plenary. So I again congratulate you for your successful work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Huang. Now I invite the United States.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I just wanted to take this opportunity to congratulate you as chairman of our legal commission. You have done an excellent job with getting good result. We have great consensus in the room. I'm very happy with the results, and it was through your leadership that we were able to start 2 hours late, have Friday as a vacation day instead of working, and you moved us right along and got the work done. So I commend you. Of course, the Secretariat was there to assist you. All the good lawyers in the Secretariat I commend for a job well done. You made it very easy for me as Vice Chair, and Muhammad Ali Al-Rakeshi also as Vice Chair. We had very little to do, so I thank you for that. I also want to commend to the group here, the 3 interns that you had working for you, Lingbo Wang from China, Pierre-Olivier Turcot from Canada, Joanna Langlade from Belgium. They too, I commend their work, and I want to say, I was an intern once, so I think it's our responsibility to encourage the next generation of aviation lawyers, because as you know, we won't be here forever. I've been here a long time already. So take the time to get to know these interns and instill the passion that was once instilled in me, and I still have, for this great organization. So I commend you. And finally, I would like to commend the interpreters for a job well done. Thank you, interpreters. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I think if you allow me, I really want to use this opportunity to express my appreciation to all delegation. And thank you so much for your kind words. It's really make me so happy. And then, of course, once again, I should say that I cannot discharge my responsibility without your support, especially the support from the Secretariat, and also the support from the interpreters for all your hard works. And I think I should say thank you once again. I see there is no more speakers, and I don't expect that. So I think it is our time to adjourn the meeting. The meeting is adjourned.